Today is Friday, June 10th, 2022, and I just got back from my family vacation in Michigan just a few days ago. My husband and our two teenage boys and we all rented some dune buggies and a four-wheeler. We had a blast playing in the sand with our rented off road vehicles, or ORVs as they call them, in Silver Lake, Michigan. If you've never been there, it's beautiful, but it's pretty fun too. We also went to Mackinac Island, which is in Lake Huron. So you have to take a ferry to get to the island, no cars allowed, horses and carriages, foot traffic, and bikes only. It was fun. And then the last leg of the trip, we went to Sleeping Bear National Lake Shore, where they also have some sand dunes. And that's just west of Traverse City, Michigan. Lots of hiking, lots of bike riding. It was a lot of fun. We had a great time. And I'm just about caught up on laundry at this point. And my boys are starting their summer activities already. Derek is umpiring baseball games. Craig is just about to start summer school. It's summer here, and I'm a whole different kind of busy now. It is good to get back to podcasting. Hi, I am Kim Newlove, host of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Welcome to part 2 of my 4-part Pharmacist Dad series. Each Friday in June 2022, I'm publishing an interview with a pharmacist dad in honor of Father's Day, which is Sunday, June 19th. If you're new to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, welcome. Again, my name is Kim Newlove, and I'm the host. I'm a pharmacist by training, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, and narrate content for explainer videos and e-learning projects. I was inspired by my nonverbal son with autism to combine my background as a pharmacist with my speaking voice and launch my business, The Pharmacist Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. My solo podcast episodes are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you are inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 156. And you can find the show notes with links to most of what's mentioned today on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and search for episode 156. Today's episode is an interview with Dr. Tony Guerra. During the first half of our conversation, we'll discuss how Tony uses his voice as a pharmacist, and in the second half, we'll focus on Tony's role as a dad. Let me tell you a little more about Tony, then we'll dive right into our conversation. Tony Guerra is a pharmacist who helps students write their way into a residency by helping them with their interviews, CVs, and letters of intent. He lives in Ankeny, Iowa with his wife and triplet daughters. Tony's full bio is in the show notes with links to his podcast, online courses, audiobooks, YouTube channel, and more. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Tony Guerra. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. It's so good to be with you today.
Kim, I'm so happy to be here. Always love talking to other parents and pharmacists, so I'm really excited to talk about my journey as a parent, and then some talking about how we do use our voices as pharmacists and how it's important that we articulate the value of our profession.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's dive right into the many ways that you use your voice as a pharmacist. Feel free to start anywhere.
So obviously as an instructor, so a little background on me, I was in retail for a long time. And then about 12 years ago, I started as a professor at a community college. First, I taught pharmacy technician students, and now I teach chemistry and pharmacology. And so if we go with the voice theme, I'm in front of the students. Obviously with the pandemic, we've had quite a bit of this hybrid model where now they'll be there at a certain time on Wednesday where I'll talk to them, and then I'll see them in lab, or I do have a full face-to-face course. And then I have the online pharmacology class in the summers where there's no face-to-face. And we have that as well. And I always try to make sure that they understand that I am a pharmacist, because in those pharmacology classes, we have nursing students, PA students, maybe some pharmacy people as well. But I think that we're here to help you. I know traditionally pharmacists have been in the basement geographically, and I
True.
try to pull us out of that. But I think non-traditional roles like what you did, you had a problem where you couldn't work traditional clinical hours, and I think a lot of people have decided that traditional clinical hours are fundamentally incompatible with being a good parent. And the jobs that I had, which were great while I was single and didn't have children, are fundamentally incompatible with being a good parent. My job right now allows me the flexibility to not only attend every event, but also I coached them through soccer for 4 years until I reached my level of incompetence. Right, that they promote you to your level of incompetence. So now I'm out of soccer and back to coaching track and cross country, which 2 of my daughters are on. So yeah, that's how I'm using my voice as a pharmacist, is to articulate the value of our profession to other health professionals, and then people that might want to become pharmacists.
Awesome. I totally agree with the parenting comments, even the comment about soccer. I could only coach until I think my son was in 4th or 5th grade, and
Okay.
they were just too good. They
Yeah.
needed a better coach,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't keep up with them anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
But oh man, when we had parents versus kids scrimmages, oh, that was the best. Do you guys do that?
Oh, we tried to set it up and we haven't gotten it yet, but it would be really unlikely for the parents to win that one. They're that good, but they are fifth graders. You're right. They're U10 or U11 now, and will be U12, and they're select. So I don't think that our parent base would be able to do that. Yeah, I think they would beat us pretty badly, actually.
Yeah, we actually had to recruit some of the older siblings to cheat and win.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well,
We're
you
the
want
parents, we get to cheat.
to. However it works. However it works.
Yeah. Well, Tony, as a pharmacist, you also use your voice as a podcaster and as an author. Could you tell me a little bit about your many books and your podcast?
Oh, sure. So one of your podcasts, you had your podcast mentor on, and he said, "Don't podcast for money," and that's not a problem. There wasn't much money in podcasting at all when I first started, and I really, for 2 or 3 years, I think I was Pharmacy Leaders podcast instead of Pharmacy Residency podcast. Kudos to Todd Urey, who was also a guest on your show. And he kind of mentored me. And then I created so many episodes that he couldn't have me under his umbrella, because it would just be kind of an overwhelm. It would be Pharmacy Residency podcast every week. And so now I'm almost at 500 episodes. And I didn't monetize it at all in the beginning. And then what happened was I started to see some problems that these students were having. One of them is with writing. So my undergrad is in English, which is a little bit unusual. And I said, okay, well, send me your letters of intent and I'll look at them. And I found that what they were doing was taking this UCSF template, filling in their information, and then calling it a day. And it wasn't as much the plagiarism and all that's really the issue, as much as they didn't go through the reflection that they needed to apply to the right places. So you go to a restaurant and you've got X number of choices, but you apply to a residency, you have 4,000 choices. And the number one reason that someone does not get a residency is because they choose the wrong place. So when we talk about residency, well, let's talk about your college, University of Toledo, 94% match rate, 94.4, and
Is that good?
it's 77 is the baseline this year. It bounced 12% this year, from 65 to 77%. So 77% of people that got an interview got a residency. But 80% of people that were going to Toledo that wanted a residency at all, and not counting the interview thing, got it. So one of the top schools in the country, actually. But
Ooh,
the big
awesome.
thing, the big thing is, when we're talking about using your voice, That's where the breakdown happened. What was it with those two unfortunate students at Toledo that, in the interview, it didn't work out? And they're thinking, I'm just not interviewing well. And what really happened was they were applying to the wrong places. So the first thing I would say with, kind of a bit of advice is make sure that you create your voice in your letter of intent. Yes, you can get it done, but what you really want to do is that. The audiobooks were also a kind of a solution to a problem. A student was like, I just don't get it. And you just have to ask why 5 times. I don't remember where I heard that, but why don't you get it? Why don't you get it? Why don't you get it? And we went all the way down to it's going too fast. And so what I created was a pre-pharmacology, not pre-pharmacy, like, organic and stuff, but pre-pharmacology book that they could listen to in a weekend. And so I had done it for my students in my class. And then I took a big chance and paid a narrator because I had no idea what per finished hour meant. And you've mentioned it in your, I think it was the Pharmfluencer book that we just did. A bunch of us were in it, right? You
Yes,
mentioned
yes.
that
Right.
you get different rates and things like that. And here's this guy. Okay, I've got 7 hours times whatever it was, $300 or $400, and I'm like, that's a big bet. and I took that bet, and it worked out for me. And some of the books do work out, and some of the books don't. But the big thing was I had a problem. My students were commuter students. They didn't have time to get the vocabulary. And just like you talked about in one of your episodes about, was it getting dropped in Germany? Was that the analogy that you gave or something like that?
Oh, yeah. That
Okay.
actually just came out today. You're a good
Okay.
student. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you think you're going one place, you go somewhere else, and you make the most of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, well, let me just help these students that are in my class. And it was from that kind of reaching other people happened, because now I think I just broke 51,000 audiobook sales, which is just
Congrats.
crazy. Yeah, thanks, which is just crazy. But when you look at the cost of sending triplets to college, 750,000 they're projecting for the three when they graduate if it's a public school, and 1.3 million if it's a private. So it became this. All right, well, let me try to help people with my voice, with other people's voices, solving their problems. And I think that I don't remember his name, but I do remember profit from your podcast. So like you said, people remember your podcast name, but not your name. And he said something like, if you start with helping the group, and for me, it was, okay, I'm going to help these residency students, and then I help them one-on-one with their letters. Or I'm going to help these pharmacology students, and I'm going to help them by giving them something they can listen to over the weekend, kind of get caught up with the class.
Yeah, I think this is a classic case of you being a gap filler. You see a
Ooh,
gap,
there's a
you
word
fill it.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. You see a gap, you fill it. That's what I call it. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with being a Christian. I don't know if you are one or not, but I have noticed a pattern. There's a lot of Christians out there that see a gap and they fill it. And I think they fill it because they feel called to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that matches you. I didn't mean to make this political or religious, but I just wanted to put that out there. You, sir, are a gap filler.
I'm a Catholic kid, grew up in a Jewish neighborhood who goes to a Lutheran church now.
All
So,
right. Okay. I'm Lutheran as well.
but I do want to say to the pharmacists out there that one of the things that I think they do is they feel guilty about ever getting paid to do something.
Yes.
And once you become a parent, you get over that pretty quickly. All right, I did, but I think the thing is it fair? What is the exchange fair? And what I've learned is, and I've been taught, that you're actually not letting them help you, and they want to help you. They want to provide that. So providing free resources as well as paid resources, I think, is the best way to kind of get around that. But no, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily religiously mission driven. But I am definitely driven in that I've been able to overcome the language barrier. My first language is not English, and my dad is from another country, so I've seen that gap in the language and the writing skills, and that was the gap I did want to fill.
Do you mind if I ask where your dad's from and what your first language is? Because there's going to be somebody listening to this that
Oh,
wants to know.
yeah, no, my dad came from Peru, and I spoke Spanish all the way up till when I was in preschool or kindergarten or first grade or something like that. And I learned English, but I went way past that and actually got an undergrad degree in English. And I've used that not just to write the books, but also to help people that don't have English as a first language get through those writing obstacles that you have when you're applying for residency. Although this is something I've learned as a husband, and I'm sure we'll end up transitioning there eventually. When my wife asks to have something done, a lot of people mistake that I need to do it. She just wants it done. So it's not that I can't hire someone, but so many people are like, oh my gosh, my wife makes me do so many things. No, no. She just asked for these things to be done. It's your inability to delegate many of those things that's causing the rift here. So, in the same way as pharmacists, I think that we want so much control over what happens that we don't trust the people to take care of things for us. And I think that's where things get a little bit tough. So, anyway, going back to the language thing, yeah. So, my first language was Spanish, second was English, and I still speak some.
Awesome. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I think I had heard that somewhere or read it in one of your books. I can't remember. And now that you mentioned that comment about your wife and how women just want things done, you don't necessarily have to be the one that does it. You wrote a whole book about that, and it
Oh
was
yeah,
something about without being asked. Isn't that the title of it?
yeah. I'm gonna rewrite that one into another book I'm writing right now. But what I heard was I'm an audiobook whale is what they call me because I've got like 600 or 700 on my Audible. So I bought about $12,000 worth of audiobooks. And
Wow.
one of them I'd listened to it, it makes the recommendation, says, you should probably listen to this. And it was a funny one. It was something like how not to hate your husband or how not to kill
I
your
have
husband.
that book.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So that was the lead-in book. The funny was the first one. And I was like, I wonder if there's other books like this. And what I called the chapter was when moms drop F bombs, because these moms and wives were not like a little mad. They were exhausted, furious. Uh, and I was, and it kind of opened my eyes, and I didn't ever, I don't think I've ever asked Mindy, like, are you really, really mad at me or something like that? But I kind of started to see all of those things. And I think they call it mom goggles or something like that. And so I started to start cleaning things up. So just this morning, I remember we were making the beds with the kids or whatever, and I used the phrase, "Can I help you put your clothes away?" So instead of saying "put your clothes away," I say, "Can I help you?" So to make sure it gets done, or "Can I help you make your bed?" And the reason I make beds is not because the admiral asked me to. There's like "Make Your Bed," this very famous book by some admiral or something. But you find stuff. Where were my glasses? They were in the bed. Where were your socks? In the bed. Where was this? It's in the. So it's just I just find stuff all the time. And the one big takeaway from that book was the clutter clot. We had this desk in the living room that was my desk. It had all this stuff in it. And it was creating this clutter clot where if we had gotten rid of that, and we did, we actually ended up smashing it with hammers to actually get it out of the house. But we got rid of that. Then there was more room for shoes, more rooms for everything, and everything changed. So a clutter clot might be a pantry, a closet, a garage, or something like that. But once I got rid of that clutter clot, the it all worked out. It all worked out. The country music record went backwards. You got your wife back, your truck back, your life back, your dog
And
back,
your
all
dog
that
came back
stuff.
to life.
That's right. All that stuff. Yeah, but it was really I I couldn't believe that I'd been married for 9 years and I'd missed all that. That was just kind of revealing, and really the point of those books I think was there's a disparity, and you might think you're doing 50%. It's like, well, I took them to school, right? But she got them dressed, made them breakfast, made sure that they had everything in their book bags, had their Chromebook charged last night, made sure they had their math homework done, and made sure that they were dressed today because today is switch day where the teachers dress like kids and the kids dress like adults. So I'm just trying to get to my 50% if I can.
I respect that, and I wish you well on your journey. I'm sure you can achieve that. But hey, I gotta ask, if you're rewriting that book, the Without Being Asked book,
Yeah,
and you've got all these great new ideas
right.
that you're going to include in the rewrite of it, How do we get men to read these books? I'm being completely serious.
Oh, so I found the guy book. Um, and let me see, what is the title? It's called If You're in My Office, It's Already Too Late. It's by a divorce lawyer. And he gives all the same lessons that the women had in those three books in guy language. But the way to explain it to a guy is if you don't do these things, not only are you going to, lose half of your assets or whatever, and that wasn't really the crux of the book, but you're going to let something that was very preventable happen because you didn't do these things. But the guy book version of those three books is If You're in My Office, It's Already Too Late by a New York attorney who's very articulate with the things that you as a guy can do to maintain a marriage. Because I think he goes like, okay, well, there's the 25% of the marriages that are just gonna go, and then there's 25% that are gonna stay no matter what. But that in between, there are things you can do, and he was very articulate about it. But just a really, really interesting book. So
I will have to check that out. So what you're saying is you just have to write it in guy language, right?
and again, he's guy language is fix it language. So he says this is how you fix it, because that's what he does. Okay, you're going to get divorced. This is what we're going to do to fix it. Are you fixing? And he's not saying you're going to fix the relationship. He says you can't actually do that. That's not actually possible, which may or may not be true. But that was kind of the crux of it is talking about a fix it way of doing things.
Nice. Well, I will watch for your new book to come out in a few months, I'm sure. You are a prolific writer. It doesn't seem like it takes you very long to take something from idea to published. What do you think? 6 months,
Mm,
maybe?
oh no, not that long. We did 100 strong residency questions, answers, and rationales in 11 days. Brandon Dyson and I, and so a normal book would be 60 to 90 days.
Wow, you guys must really have the formatting and the cover art and all of that, just the process down.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the big thing that I learned is to not write the book, but write the questions that you want to answer, and then just write and answer the questions in audio, and then actually finish and edit the book. That's the process that works faster.
That's brilliant, and I know that Hilary Blackburn has written a book like that, and if I'm not mistaken, the Unicorn Pharmacist book, didn't that kinda get written that way? You took podcast guests and used that content for the book?
Yeah, and I did, and I actually asked people to contribute to that, and I think Farmfluencer. I really struggle saying that with um, that one. I think was similar, and I don't know that I really like the way that came out. I think the better way to do that is to find people that have a specific thing, and then bring those specific people together, and I would do that one over again. And I may do that one over again too. But I think what I missed was people don't want a unicorn job. People want a job that's less stressful or that's flexible or that fits with their lives. So the title was wrong on that one. So still thinking about that.
Well, I think a second version would certainly be beneficial for your audience. Everybody's always looking for something else to do these
You
days.
would definitely be in it. You're the audiobook author as well. So you're the audiobook narrator, but you also do some other. See, here I go. I'm switching I can already tell. I'm switching it around. Aren't you? Don't you do besides just audiobooks? You also do voiceover and some educational stuff and things like that.
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I do a number of things. Basically, I've never said this on air before, but I'm an audio mercenary. It's like
Oh.
the A team, but I've got a voice. So if you've got the money, I'll speak your script. No, but seriously, I do audiobooks for women pharmacist
Yeah.
authors. I wouldn't mind doing one for a male author. I've just never been asked. And let's see, I do medical narration for pharma and biotech, and I narrate explainer videos and e-learning projects, pretty much whatever anybody needs me to do. But I'm going to kind of pause that because we're about to go into summer mode.
Okay.
Here I go, just like totally falling for your question, Mr.
Yeah.
Podcast host. And, anyways, I am actually hoping to help pharmacists launch podcasts coming up here. I'm
Oh.
actually going to have a back to school series in August. I'm going to have pharmacists who have online courses of some sort or who teach something come onto the podcast. And that's when I'm going to announce my online course, just to show people what's under the hood of my podcast. I love machines, cars, motorcycles, whatever. So that title totally fits me. Anyways, it's going to be What's Under the Hood of Kim Newlove's podcast, $25 or something like that, just so people can see what they're getting themselves into, because anybody can for free go out and start a podcast, but to know like what I put into mine, that's worth some money. And if you want to coach with me so that your podcast can be kind of like mine, I am interested in coaching, but it's definitely going to have a price tag.
And you've already got some content, so that's exciting because some of your past episodes were about the nuts and bolts too.
Yes, very good. Oh my gosh, you've been looking at my podcast. Thank you, Tony Guerra. This is great.
I do my homework.
No, you did. You
I'm the
so totally did.
professor.
And
I'm
I am
supposed to
impressed.
do my homework.
All right. Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about making things easier for people to understand. And you were saying that you understand the pain point of individuals who do not have English as a first language.
Right.
So these are your English as a second language individuals. And I swear, some of your pharmacology, mnemonics, and whatnot books are perfect for that. And I'm kind of in the drug name pronunciation space too. So I want to talk about that right now. So much respect to being in that space as well. I actually learned like how I wanted to differentiate my stuff from you by looking at some of your stuff and listening to one audiobook that Mike Lenz narrated.
Oh, okay. And I can tell you where I went wrong with the this is everything Tony did wrong as an author, so you don't do it. I wrote how to
People will learn from you, Tony. It's
I
okay.
wrote how to pronounce drug names, and I wrote that book, and I had it narrated, and I found out that people do not want to learn how to pronounce drug names. People want to learn how to pronounce a drug name, which means that it has to be searchable. And YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So YouTube is where I put my pronunciations. But I also did something called back building, which is if you struggle to pronounce it, to go fen, tuffen, C tuffen, C to mina fen. So going from the back to the front.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually had talked about a book in the podcast that came out today about autism awareness
Mm-hmm.
and acceptance. There was a book called Steps to Independence that I read, I want to say when my kid was in preschool. So maybe 2008, 2009. And they have this thing called backward chaining. And when I was thinking about how am I going to describe in my online course how to break down a drug name, and I had seen
Mm-hmm.
something on your online course about back building, and I was like, "Oh, that's like backwards chaining." I do that with
It's
my
back
kid all
chain.
the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it's like when you're getting their pants on. Oh no, you just have them zip up the zipper at first. And then the next thing you know, their pants are at their hips and they're pulling their pants up to their hips and they're pulling up the zipper. You just have them do the last steps first. And I was like, Tony Guerra is a genius. He should have been a special ed teacher.
Linguistics. I studied linguistics in my English degree, and that's where that came from. So it wasn't my idea. I just saw it and threw it in there. But that book barely broke even. So that one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
So they don't want to hear all of them, but they do want to know how to pronounce a specific one.
I have found that too. My course is not that popular, and that's fine. But I like that you have individual words on there. But I'm one of those people who's like, this is how you do it from the USP dictionary online. You have to make a choice, right? How are you going to pronounce this?
Oh
Is it going to
yeah.
be what you learned in college, or are you going to go from a specific dictionary? So mine is the USP dictionary online version,
Okay.
the USAN
Yeah.
version. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you just have to pick something that you can be consistent about and go with it. And yeah, I've also researched some of your YouTube videos to see how does Tony pronounce it, because um, you know everybody pronounces it differently. But oh my God, those ones that are computer generated are the worst,
Oh,
right?
yeah. And to be fair, I did pronounce one wrong, and man, YouTube just hammered me. And I'm like, why are you on here? How do you know that it's right or wrong? But I pronounced hydrocodone as hydrocodone. And the schwa in there is actually a movement forward. So if you go from the co to the ka, That's the upside down E for anybody that's doesn't know what a schwa is. But when you move a language forward over the years, you'll have more schwas. And so I was too far forward, so I had to back it up and pronounce it like everybody else did. Hydrocodone, oxycodone, not oxycodone, hydrocodone. So, yeah.
I think that the first way you said it is it might actually be the USAN way. I'd have to double
Yeah.
check it, but I think that a lot of times it's like the telephone game. When we go to college, we learn from our
We
professor, right?
do. We do.
And we often just imitate what they have, but
Right.
then later in life when you learn the real pronunciation, you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go with that."
Yeah. And escitalopram, I think I pronounced that one wrong. I think it's citalopram. So, and
Yes,
not citalopram. So
but I
I,
say citalopram.
right,
That's
but I
yeah,
think the
that's how I
right way
learned.
is citalopram. So, but we know hey, let's
I
just
know.
agree on one so we can move on. It's not omeprazole.
Oh, yeah, no. I always love that pronunciation, though, because it sounds like an
Ravioli.
Italian dish, right?
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah,
Omeprazole with your ravioli. Well, actually, it
yeah.
would be before empty stomach.
Oh.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay.
You gotta have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I will put a link to you as an author on Amazon in the show notes so that people who are unfamiliar with your works can check those out.
Sweet. Thanks.
Are there any other ways that you use your voice as a pharmacist that we haven't already talked about? We talked about YouTube, your podcast, your books.
Courses. I do courses too. Yeah. So I have a couple of courses on most of the stuff is residency and pharmacology. So I think that the next one would be more career oriented, but now it's pretty easy to get a pharmacist job, but I think a lot of people are still kind of like, I don't want to work as much, and I do want to do a side hustle and those types of things, and the flexibility that we have, you can't compare that. So I think maybe the next course is careers, but residency.teachable.com. I use Teachable for my courses. Do you use Thinkific or Teachable
I
or
use Kajabi.
Kajabi? Okay.
I use the overpriced one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Whatever one works
It
for you.
works great.
Okay. All right. Whatever works for
Yeah.
you. Cool.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. And the more courses that I put up there, I think the more money that I make, I think it'll be more economical.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all your success as a pharmacist. Let's move on to how you use your voice as a dad. Tell me about your family.
So I've got triplet 10-year-olds who will be 11 in July. They were born at 1.5, 1.5, and 2 pounds. My wife's a saint. One of them tried to get out at 19 weeks. Doctor pushed her back in, cerclage procedure, 55 days of hospital bed rest.
Wow.
We had gotten engaged at a half marathon, so my wife was fit. When she was done with that 55 days of hospital bed rest, she could not get from the handicapped parking space to the front door of the hospital without help. She had lost so much muscle mass, and she's fine now, but that was just a devastating, devastating time. And so we've had three the whole time. And I think I remember you talking about how you had one child and you were with the other child. And we have pictures of us with two bottles, like feeding like gunslingers, like two bottles here, you guys both eat at the same time. And we slept like a baby in those first couple of years. We got up crying every hour and a half. It was just brutal. They struggled with suck, swallow, breathe. So it was 90 minutes to feed, 90 minutes to sleep, 90 minutes to feed, 90 minutes to sleep. And
Wow.
that was very tough. But there are a lot of good things that happen from that. When you talk about childcare, you've got three of them. So for some reason, the price of having 1 and 3 is not much different. So it's not such of a big deal. They all play on the same soccer team. They're all the same age. They're all in the same grade, though one is in a different classroom. So they entertain each other, but they also bicker and fight with each other. So they've got, all those good things. But I think in terms of being a parent, I've really, really learned quite a bit from my wife, who is the calming force. So it really is oh boy, if your dad gets home and sees this, and it's just like, and I don't want to be that person. And so I've been working really, really hard with them. The toughest thing, I think, and I don't want to go into gender roles here, but the toughest thing to do is apologize. But I found from my wife that it is absolutely probably the most important thing you can do, especially with daughters, that you apologize and say that was in. No, you can't. I can't do just because I'm an adult and parent. I don't get a free pass, and I do that. So sometimes, and they really like this. I would go in timeout. So they would literally put me at the bottom of the stairs, put the little 5-minute timer on. Dad, you said a bad word, bad news. I got to get somewhere. No, I'm sorry. You can get there after your timeout. That'd be great. And we're going to take your iPad away from you. So
That's both cute and is probably frustrating at the same time.
it is. So I think it's just such a long span that they're 10 now. But I think the one thing you kind of take away is, have I been a present parent? And the answer is yes. And did I let my career get in the way of that? The answer is no. And I think the data show that a CEO spends an average of 5 minutes a day with their child, 4 of which is an instruction, which means they're telling their child what they need to do and then just being there for 1 minute. And that seems like a really small number, but I can see how you could kind of lose touch that way. And you've got the opposite, which is you are there every day, every single day.
All day, every day, especially the snow days.
Yeah. Yeah. So the pandemic, I did not take well. That was really, really hard for me. I'm a person who goes to work and does best at work. My wife is working at home Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the pandemic was really hard on was really hard on my kids because it was really hard on me, and I did not take that well. I wish I could go back in time and adjust that and get myself an apartment or something. But
Oh,
but,
geez.
but yeah, it was bad.
That's extreme, but hey, if that's how you feel, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So what specifically would you like to know about being a parent, or what have some of the other dads you've talked to talked about?
Oh, okay. Well, I try to ask them all similar questions, but just so you know, I've already interviewed Tim Ulbrich,
Okay.
Mike Kelzer.
4 boys. So you have 4 boys. I don't know Mike's situation.
Mike has 10 kids.
Well,
No joke, 5 boys, 5 girls.
wow. All right.
I'm trying to get a little bit of
Yeah,
variety,
I only have
and
3.
well, I know, but you have multiples. You're
Mhm.
the only dad that I'm interviewing that has
Oh,
multiples that
okay.
I know of. And then the 4th one is Iqbal Acha.
Okay.
He's like a LinkedIn guru,
Okay.
and he's a pharmacist.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the mix.
All right. All
And
right.
he was a dad at a very young age, I
Oh.
think around 20.
Oh,
So
good.
he gets to kind of speak from that perspective.
I was a dad at a very old age. I was 39, so
That's not necessarily old, but
it's
you squeaked it in before 40.
yeah.
I don't judge, but I know there's so many different ways to build a family, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I want everybody to feel included in this conversation. I see a lot of different opportunities to interview different pharmacist dads. I had to pick 4, and
Oh.
I have never met you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I have been, we've been back and forth on LinkedIn
Yeah.
or email over the years. And heck yeah, I'm going to take this
Okay.
opportunity to interview you.
All
It's
right. Well,
awesome.
let's talk about let's talk about what it is to be infertile. That was brutal.
Oh, is that why
Yeah,
you
yeah.
waited
So
so
we
long?
didn't
Yeah.
waited so long. So you're not infertile until day 366. So it's just like you're not missing a missing person until after 24 hours. You're not infertile till the 366th day. And what ended up happening was it actually ended up being just glucophage is all that needed to. She just needed to take some glucophage, and um, it was a 1 in 10,000 chance to have triplets naturally, and that's what happened. And I remember the doctor's exact words, which were, "That never happens." And we could quantify never. Never was 1 in 10,000 actually. So the chances of having triplets naturally is 1 in 10,000. Now I don't know what the. I mean, I guess I could do the math, but 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1 in 8 chance of having all daughters. But yeah, so that was really tough. We looked at some of the options, adoption things. Really went to the church, went to our pastor, prayed, those kinds of things, and it just worked out how it was supposed to work out.
Did you get married later in life? I'm just
Oh
curious.
yeah. I got married 4 years before we had the children. So they were born 2011. So it was 97. So yeah. So 97 was when, and it's, no, that's not right. 97 is when I graduated. 2007 is when we got married. So 20 years after pharmacy school makes me 45. That sounds wrong. That's wrong. It was later. It was later. I can't do the math in my head. But yeah, I was older when I got married. So I want to say mid 30s. And she was mid 20s. So we're 11 years apart. She's 11 years younger.
How can you tell when it's time to start a family?
That I never actually pictured having a family ever. I never thought of
Oh,
it.
but yet you've got triplets.
Right. No, and I'm just saying that I just, and again, I don't want to get into gender roles here, but I just never said I can't wait to be a parent, because as a dad, I don't, so this didn't happen because I have multiples, but I think in general, as dads, we become much more engaged when they become 5 or 6 and they can throw a ball or something to that extent. But I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, you don't feel like a dad until you hear the sonogram. Is that the right word? So sonography is the sonar. Wait until you
You
hear
hear
the
the
heartbeat and they
heartbeat.
turn the volume on. That's the moment for guys. And I remember that, and I was so excited that there were triplets. And this is how out of tune I am as a guy or dad or whatever. I was so excited because it was so efficient, like to have three at once, and that I was older, so that means that they were going to be younger when they graduated, and that we were all done. And here I am, so excited as triplets. My wife and the sonographer are both crying because they understood the risks and all the things that come along with having three. And so they could look down the road where I was looking right there at, like, oh, this is gonna be great. so so just talking about the differences between the exact same event being taken completely different by the dad and the mom at the exact same time. So
That reminds me of that cartoon. Have you ever seen it? I think they use it to describe entrepreneurs and other things. There's a bunch of people with blindfolds on their eyes, and they're all touching a different part of an elephant, and one person says, "Oh, it's smooth, it must be a snake."
uh-huh.
And somebody's grabbing the tail, and it's got the tuft of
Yeah.
hair at the end, and they're saying, "Oh, it feels like a warthog or something," because it's got this spiky hair, and somebody else is touching the tusk and says, "Oh, this is like a turtle, it's
Yeah.
hard, it's got a shell." And when you think about that cartoon and you think of all the people experiencing a different part of the animal at the same time, you can see how they might think it's something other than an elephant.
Yeah.
But then, you just described the
Oh,
same thing.
yeah.
What
It
you
was
felt and what
just,
your wife felt were different.
yeah. And then the nice thing was that because we had 3 months in the NICU, I got an excellent education from the nurses. Each child had their own nurse. It worked out to be, the insurance paid for it, but I did figure out that it was about $750,000 to have them there for those 3 months. Um, and they really helped me understand the actual nuts and bolts of swaddling and those types of things. So the whole, okay, well, we just had a kid. You're the mom. You got it. I'm going to go back to work today and all that stuff, which I think that sometimes that can happen. And that just was not even an option when you have three. There was just no, it just wasn't. So, and I have a very strong mom figure, so that really wasn't an option. But yeah, I think I answered the question. I drifted.
Yes,
I drifted.
you answered the question of like, how do you know when it's time to have a
Yeah.
kid?
So I didn't. My wife knew that she wanted to have a child by 29, and I think it was 29 when she had them. And I know you were 23, 22, something like that, so a little younger.
Married at 22, pregnant at 23, first kid at 24.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
Life happens.
yeah, and that was kind of part of her plan. She's Midwesterner, grew up with her family, has three sisters now, three sisters, and not having a family was not an option. So basically, when I agreed to be her husband, that's when I made the commitment to have children by that marriage, I guess.
That's all right. So there are going to be potential fathers out there, pharmacist dads
Hmm.
listening to this. And so my thought was for you to share kind of from your background, somebody
Oh,
who was in
I
retail and
gotcha.
you're doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
you're explaining it, but there's going to be guys who are like, "Oh my gosh,
There's
I'm
no
in the
good
thick
time.
of my life." And
There's
yes,
no good
that's
time.
what they
There's no
need to
good time to have a
hear.
child. No, there's no good time. It just you adjust your life as soon as the child comes, and you make the changes that you need to. But there's no good time to have a child. Oh, I want to wait till I'm established. Okay, well, whatever that means. Maybe that is good. I want to wait. I know I hear this all the time. I want to pay off my student loans before I have a kid. Okay. Well, I'm sure that after you pay off your student loans, you won't get into debt with a house or car. So it's a treadmill. Just if you want to have a kid, have a kid. It'll all work itself out.
Wisdom from Tony Guerra. Love it. No, seriously, this is real talk here because I think there's a lot of people that have that exact thought. I'll pay off my student loans, then I'll have a kid, or I'll just wait until I finish my MBA, then I'll have a kid,
Yeah.
or I'll wait until I put in 5 years at my company and I've got X number of weeks of vacation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've heard these from actual moms, and I just didn't know what it was like for a dad or what you'd heard. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah. What's your next question?
Okay, what's one of your biggest challenges or the biggest challenge of being a dad so far?
um, Sometimes I just completely lose it. And the question is, how do you react in the moment, which I usually fail, but I usually do a lot better after the moment. So while I may just completely lose it because they're bickering with each other over something that doesn't even exist, it's in the iPad world. So it's something digital that they're fighting over. I lose it, but I've learned to apologize. And that apologizing has been the most important thing that I can do. And it's not just, here's a treat. It's dad made a mistake. I need to apologize for that. And I've heard this, that daughters who have fathers who clean and make their beds, and I'm terrible at dishes, so I get kicked off of that. But do that. Demand the same of the people who they're in relationships with. So I'll say it again: daughters who have fathers who make the bed and do the housework, demand that housework be done of their significant others. So I don't know if that's a good thing or whatever, but I think that was I'm not modeling like be like me. I'm modeling like this is how I would want to be treated more than anything else. And I want them to be as strong as they can possibly be. And my wife's like, well, I'm not doing your laundry, and all that stuff. So I think it's been I think I've just had a lot of education from my kids about what's okay and what's not. But that's the toughest thing is apologizing when you went over the line.
That can be humbling. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite things about being a dad, or your very favorite thing, if you can think of it?
Oh, I live vicariously through their sports. So when they get a goal, it's like, and yeah. So here's a good one. Brielle was the smallest, and she's now the same size as they are. And we were playing a 7v7 tournament, and it went to penalty kicks. And so when you go to penalty kicks, you have your three and their three go, and both of them basically tied. And so now we've got the other three players that are still in the field. And she was the very last of the sixth. And she could never actually kick the ball in the air before. And so kicking the ball, scoring the winning goal, man, just yeah, that's something that really was one of my favorite things. And all of them have had that experience. And I've never scored a goal before in soccer. So it's just kind of cool for them to have that. But that's the coolest thing. I mean, I hate to say I live vicariously through them succeeding in sports, but in many ways I do. But what I have done and I've learned is that we never talk about sports on the way home. So I don't provide step-by-step analysis of what they could have done better. We
Oh,
usually
I
are
see.
where we're usually talking about, all right, Casey's or Come and Go for slushies. Like they absolutely do not want to hear anything about the game or anything like
Well, if they don't want to hear about it, way to go following their
that.
lead. I mean, that makes them happy. Everybody's happy. And then you can talk about it later.
Yeah. And then the other tip is make sure you know their love language.
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, did you have them take the love languages quiz or did you
I have
just ask?
not, but I do know what they are. One of them likes gifts, one of them likes positive reinforcement or words, and one of them likes touch, like hugs or good job or hit you in the shoulder or whatever it is. So, yeah. But very, very clear on their love languages. And they're very different. So I didn't mention that. They're not identical. So all of their wants are different. One does fencing and ice skating, one is really good at gymnastics, and one is the cross country star. And then all three of them play soccer, but they all have an individual sport where they're kind of master of their universe, and they all have a team sport at least. And we didn't plan it that way; it just worked out that way.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it sounds like you celebrate their differences. They seem to be incredibly like age appropriate with their physical ability and everything for kids that were born prematurely. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So when you get lucky, they catch up at 2 years, and we got lucky with all three, which rarely happens. So, and one of them is medically enhanced. It's the only way to put the growth hormone thing. Yeah, we were very lucky. There are some minor things with respiratory issues, asthma, because of respiratory distress syndrome. But other than that, yeah,
Well, I'm very happy for you,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And I know that you when you got your diagnosis that day, I think the physician maybe made the mistake of saying some people grow out of it. So you're thinking, oh, well, that'll be great. But you also talked about how if you had known that they would grow out of it, that you wouldn't have tried so hard and you probably wouldn't have been as good a parent as you were. So,
Tony Guerra, I want to cry. You actually listened to my podcast. Thank you. That was good stuff too, and you said it really well. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. So, okay, I've got 7 minutes. So,
All right. I'm going to hit you with some real quick questions
okay.
then. All right. Do you remember any weird cravings that your wife had and if you partook of the weird cravings too
You mean during the pregnancy?
during her pregnancy?
She said, "If you hand me another beef stick, I will punch you," or something like that.
Okay.
So beef sticks, cheese, and graham crackers, they just kept sending them because she was supposed to gain weight and be 178 pounds. Her normal weight is 112 or so.
Oh,
They
that's a
kept
big
sending
gain.
this food to her, and the other thing was that if you have a friend that is on bed rest, visit them. It's the nicest thing you can do because she's like, I knew who my friends were. They visited me because there is nothing restful about bed rest at all, at all.
All right. Fair point. Next question. Raising kids is expensive. We both know that. What's one thing that you've been surprised that you had to buy for any of your girls?
I don't want to use a physical object. Let's just do the spend on the athletics. The sports spend annually is between 12 and $14,000. So just
That's
on
surprising, isn't it?
it was. Gymnastics is we dodged dance, did not dodge gymnastics. But if you want a nice inexpensive sport, track and cross country. Medium is soccer. Brutal gymnastics, ice skating. Those are expensive sports, but those were a surprise.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. Just a general question before we wrap it up. Do you have any just general advice or even something specific for current or prospective dads, pharmacist dads?
This is going to go back to that being a good partner. Something I ask most every morning is, what's the most important thing I can help you with? Because a lot of times dads will mow the lawn, take out the trash, do this. But the thing that was most important and bothering her has not been done. So this morning, my daughter has a birthday party this weekend. She wanted to get her friend a baby bottle pop. My wife went with her to the store, couldn't find it. And so I went and got it. And that was kind of the thing that was top of mind, that she couldn't think of other things to do it. So when your wife asks you for something, she's probably already tried to do it. So don't make a big deal of it. Just go do it. But in addition, for example, like I went to go get another pair of my daughter's glasses. I took her once to the chiropractor or whatever. So take the one thing she wants, but then what are a couple of things that she needs done, but she's just not asking you for, that you could probably get done ahead of time. So I don't know what the expression is, but you always want to keep thinking of what can I do, because I guarantee unless you're a stay-at-home dad and she is a full-time worker, that you will never get to that 50%. Jeff Foxworthy said it best. Guys are more proud of their 5% than a wife could ever be of her 95%. And then he's like, I threw out the ashtray, did it for you. But it's just the amount of invisible work that is done by my wife is incredible. And I think that's the term for it. And so how can I help? You might be exhausted from work. You might be exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is do more stuff. But the more you do, the better that relationship goes. And that's advice from the same that attorney as well, which is be mindful of what her needs are. And this is something I didn't get early, which was, if the way that he talked, and you talked about how do you kind of translate that, if you want to explain it to a guy. So it's like, okay, you leave your shoes all over the place, or you leave the house a mess. And my wife, and again, I hate talking about gender roles and things like that, but my wife cares very much about what our house looks like, and just being clean, in a place that when she comes home, everything's, the counter's wiped off, stuff is not on the floor, and those types of things. The way to tell that to a guy is, imagine you just lost a couple $100,000 in the stock market today. That's what it feels like when your wife comes home and the shoes are on the floor, the stuff isn't picked up, the kids haven't been able to do their homework, and then she's got to do this other thing after work or whatever. So maybe that's a switched gender role, maybe that's a stereotype. But when that attorney said that, and he said, imagine losing all of this money, and that you have lost part of your financial stability for yourself and your family, like you lost your job. That's how some wives look at their homes, like, and you're not taking care of the home. And I'm talking about inside, not just mowing the lawn. That was really eye-opening for me, that I couldn't care about what she cared about until I could empathize. The toughest thing to do is to feel another person's pain. And I know I'm going a little bit deep here, but I could not feel her pain until I translated it into something that would cause me pain. If that makes sense. Sorry, I went way, way deep on that, but that was a really important thing, I think.
Yeah, no, I get it. The main theme there is empathy.
Yeah,
Have empathy.
yeah, and to have that empathy, yeah, I needed to translate.
Yeah, learn to understand what's important to your partner in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Good advice. Deep Thoughts with Tony Guerra. Remember that on Saturday Night Live?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right.
All right. As we wrap this up, Tony, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think I covered it, and I think that if we end with empathy, I think you can't go wrong. That trying to figure out what's most important to other people, whether you're helping them as a business person, as a pharmacist, with your voice, or silently by doing something for them. My wife's love language is acts of service. So what I do says a lot more than what I say to her. And knowing that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody listening to read the book by Dr. Gary Chapman, The Five Love Languages. You totally got it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Much respect to you, Tony Guerra.
All right.
That's great. Tony, thanks for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast today to share how you use your voice as a pharmacist and a dad. Take care.
Kim, thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome, and happy Father's Day.
It's going to be an awesome one. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to share some final thoughts with you now. First of all, it was so nice to finally meet Tony and record this podcast interview with him. We have been in touch via LinkedIn and email, but this podcast episode was our first time having a face-to-face conversation, albeit over my recording software, Squadcast. It still counts. Next, I want to say that I am personally inspired by how Tony uses his voice, and I love the insights that he shared about writing books, solving problems as an entrepreneur, and being the best husband and father that he can be. I hope Tony has inspired you to use your voice too. If you're wondering about the pronunciation of hydrocodone, Tony and I talked about it during this episode. Here you go. According to the USP Dictionary Online, which is a subscription-based resource, the pronunciation of hydrocodone is hydrocodone. I'm pretty sure you would recognize it either way that Tony said it, but officially, again, the USP Dictionary Online has listed it as hydrocodone. Last but not least, I really appreciate the insights that Tony made about being a dad. As parents, we all have our blessings and challenges, right? I hope Tony's stories and advice will help you if you are a current or prospective parent. Please know that none of us has all the answers, and we really are just trying to do the best we can. I feel really lucky to have had all these conversations with pharmacist moms and now all these pharmacist dads about wins and failures, blessings and challenges, and all the other topics that we can surely relate to. For more insights from pharmacist moms and dads, check out my Pharmacist Mom series and the rest of this Pharmacist Dad series here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. That's all I've got for you today. I just want to say thank you for listening to episode 156 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. What's in the show notes today? You'll find Tony Guerra's full bio and links to his podcast, online courses, YouTube channel, audiobooks, and more. If you know someone who would like this episode or needs to hear it, please share this with them. And subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Join me next week for part 3 of the Pharmacist Dad series. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and thank you again for listening.